r/AskReddit. Night owls of Reddit. What is the most creepiest thing you've seen or heard while everyone else was asleep? I hear loud screaming from the forest behind my home from time to time, always in the night. Some owls screech like a human being murdered. Let's not forget foxes can make a scream that sounds eerily similar to a woman screaming bloody murder. Downright terrifying. My kids had those Mike and Sully toys that talk to each other. They started moving by themselves. Half sentences. I threw them into the basement. Found out the remote for the TV also sent a message to their IR. I was scared, then felt stupid. My nephew had a peekaboo Big Bird U a long time ago. The batteries started dying, but it was still motion activated. You'd walk into a room and hear a low gurgling peekaboo I see a reu. One night I was up studying by my window, and it was pouring rain outside. The blinds were shut, and suddenly I heard footsteps coming up to the front of my house. I got a little freaked out and waited for them to go away, but it all went silent. I moved to my bedroom and went to sleep. The next morning, I found a trashed old blanket on my porch. I'm guessing a hobo slept on my porch, right outside the window. Well, the creepiest, my dog is very spoiled, but not actually his fault. When he was a puppy he had a problem and he would often want to go outside to do his job. His health problem now is gone, but you know the habit stayed. Sometimes he wants to go out in the middle of the night. About 1 kilometer away my house there is a cemetery. He refuses to go there at night. He stares for a while at the street to the cemetery and bolts back inside the house. It is creepy watching him staring at maybe something inside the dark that I don't see. A long time ago I was living in an apartment and someone in the apartment right next to me was shot and murdered. I was up to hear it. Sorry if this bring up bad memories. May I ask if you recall the sounds after the actual shot, like people moving around trying to get out? A couple of months back, I was in my basement, at night, in the dark, reading a creepiest moments thread on Reddit of course, and generally enjoying freaking myself out. My cat is at the window and starts making sounds like he wants my attention. After a bit of this, I put down the phone, go over to the window, and stare out into the moonlit yard. A long moment I stare, but nothing. Then just as I'm about to turn away, part of the woodpile's shadow detaches itself and moves out of view. A 1+ creepy moment. So this happened last winter. I decided to search the fridge at about 2:30 AM or so when I heard a loud bang at the door of my backyard. It was like someone threw a large bottle of beer at the door really hard and it shattered into pieces. I ducking froze. I looked at the door handle because if someone was trying to enter, they would try to open it. It was locked. Nothing happened. I rechecked and made sure everything is locked and went to bed. Heard footsteps all night long at the roof. I kinda brushed it off. Next morning, just as I imagined, it was an animal. I saw the footprints and it threw an empty bottle of beer right at the door. Hearing a woman's voice clearly call my name happened a lot when I was a kid. Happened a lot living alone in a barracks room. And still happens to this day. Creeps me right the duck out. I'll never forget the night we had a big thunderstorm late at night. I love thunderstorms. No big deal. But once the storm ended, I kept seeing blinking lights out my bedroom window. Couldn't figure out what was causing it. I go out to my porch and it's almost like day night blinking back and forth due to little sparkles everywhere. In the grass, in the trees, in the air. I woke my wife up because I was confused and certain no one would believe me if she didn't see. Still not entirely sure what it was, but my best guess was a whole lot of static electricity crackling after the storm passed. Never seen anything like it before or since. When I was in college, I lived in a townhouse. There is this thick concrete gate with a wooden door that blocks the entrance of my townhouse. It's about 7.5 feet tall. The gate hinge and latch are very loud so you can always hear when someone is coming in. It was maybe 3 AM and I was downstairs in the kitchen making a salad. Don't judge me. My best friend was staying the night and was asleep upstairs. As I was making my salad, I hear pounding on the door. Maybe about 10-15 pounds. I hid behind the kitchen island for maybe about 10 minutes. I ran upstairs and woke up my friend asking if she can come down with me cause I heard noises. She reluctantly got up and came down with me. I was making my salad and we were chatting when about 5 minutes later, pounding, again, extremely loud and maybe 10-15 pounds. We both hid behind the island for maybe 5 minutes before running upstairs. There's no way that it was someone playing a prank on me. We would have heard them coming and heard them jumping over the fence if they tried. It was terrifying. Another time, that same friend and I were downstairs doing homework when we heard my roommate's sliding door glide open upstairs. My friend freaked out, but I told her that my roommate was probably sleeping and just woke up. We continued working. About 30 minutes later, in walks my roommate from one of her late night outings. We freaked out. We all went upstairs together and there was no one there. Those were scary things I heard at night as a night owl. Had gone out at 2 AM for a smoke. Saw a guy chasing another guy who was completely naked down the street. Have never been more confused in my life. You didn't happen to live near Jeffrey Dahmer, did you? My mom sleep talking. Don't be afraid of the dead man across the street. Ducking ominous. Cottars slowly crunching the shells on my driveway. That would be unnerving. I live in a historic neighborhood in a mid-sized city. I walked out on my porch for a quick smoke around 2 AM and found a woman standing at my front gate mumbling to herself. The fence and gate are about 20 feet from my front steps and around 5 feet tall. The gate had no lock. She never acknowledged my presence. Just stood, unfocused and mumbling. I could chalk this up to someone who was homeless or really drunk. But she was dressed to the nines, and after about 2 minutes of my standing there like a deer in headlights, she turned and walked confidently to a nice little Kia and drove away. The gate has a lock now. IDK where I was headed, but past a bus station at about 3 AM. Buses in my area stop running by 10 or 11. Noticed what I thought was oil leaking from something. There was a small puddle of it dripping down the curb and into the street. Followed the small puddle up towards the bus stop. It ended under a guy laying face down under the bus bench. Also, it wasn't oil. The door slowly opening by itself while making a small creaking sound. No wind. Closed all windows. Locked all doors. Home alone. I didn't sleep well on that damn freaking night. Raccoons fighting. They sound horrific. I've heard that before. Neighbors used to have a family of raccoons that lived in the trees in their backyard. I was a night owl at the time and heard them a few times early in the morning fighting. The growling sounded like a mix between a large dog and a mountain lion. Freaked me the duck out. I lived in Idaho at the time and honestly thought their dogs were fighting with a mountain lion. So I grabbed my pistol just in case, went to my second floor patio and saw 2 raccoons rolling on the ground fighting, making those ducking noises. Left them alone and told my neighbors about them later that afternoon. They were well aware of them and told me their dogs are scared of them. I was sitting in my old house and it's like 2 AM. My girlfriend was asleep on the couch and I'm sitting beside the couch donging off on the laptop. The couch is right next to the hallway and I'm just sitting there and I start hearing footsteps come down the hall. I looked down and was just kind of like, okay, weird, but whatever. A few minutes later I just remember hearing someone whisper in my ear, "Hey," and I noped the duck off the floor to the other side of the living room. Slept with the lights on that night. When I told my GF about it, she got pissed that I just left her on the couch. I was downstairs in the living room while my parents were asleep. My couch is next to the front door. I heard a bang on the door and looked to the right. I was frozen in fear. Then I noticed fingerprints on the glass of the front door. I was terrified and sat there for a long time. I went up to bed paranoid for a very long time, facing the wall. I was thinking of this movie called Lights Out, where whenever the lights are out this grudge lady comes. Turned out I have cardboard boxes under my table, and the reason why this is important is because there is a scene in the movie where the grudge scratches on cardboard boxes. I suddenly heard scratches on my boxes and almost had a heart attack. I turned around and my cat jumped on my face. I started to have a stroke. That still doesn't explain the fingerprints. I live in a second floor apartment. There was someone coughing down outside my dining room window. He was out there for a while, coughing, then silence, then more coughing. I looked through every damn window trying to see this person, but there was no one there. I couldn't go to bed until it had been long enough that I felt confident the coughing had stopped. A scream of rodent being eaten by a feral cat in the back garden. One night I was up late, about 2, when I heard a muffled boom that shook the house. A minute or two later I heard fire trucks, so I fired up the scanner app I had at the time, but all I could figure out was the street they were going to. The next day I checked the news sites and found out some guy blew up his house to commit suicide. Someone trying to break in through the main door. I was like 13-14, and when I heard those creepy sounds like stuff was going through our keyhole from the exterior. Looked through the peephole and saw this weird man in a black hoodie, so I deadass just knocked on the door. He freaked out, probably thought no one was at home, and ran his ass off. Never told my parents anything. Scary, but not creepy. Used to live in a ranch in Mexico. Tons of packs of roving wild dogs, not wolves or coyotes, just dogs. Now, I know dogs might not seem very scary, but when you're out in the middle of the forest at night with no light or other humans for several hours in each direction, packs of hungry wild animals are terrifying. Really activates the strongest, most urgent of primal fears when you know you're actively being hunted down. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content. It's free and that's a great price.